Hello and welcome to the Claret Blue podcast, sponsored by NordVPN. There is a delightful discount code in the top line of the description. So if you want to get your hands on a NordVPN plan, you can do so by following the link below. I'm your host for this one, Dan Rolinson, joined by a sniffling John Townley. John, you're feeling a little bit under the weather, as we all are, to be honest. How are you, mate?
Yeah, well, not very well, actually. Usually I sound fine. Whenever I go abroad, like on a plane or something, I swear I always get ill, which is, I feel like that is my fault, though, because it always happens. Yeah, I need to improve my immune system. I need to get some, what are those, Yakult? Is it Yakult?
Yeah. Or Actimel, maybe, if you're
Actimel,
not sponsored by either of them, so let's give two options.
No, that would be a strange sponsor.
I'll do it. Welcome to the Claret Blue podcast, sponsored by Yakult, for the best digestion available. Visit the link in the description below. A lot of kind of downbeat energy, I suppose, after Nottingham Forest, and rightly so. To lose in that manner is obviously it's like, there's no other way of dressing it up. Before we get into those questions, I said that we probably wouldn't do this, but I'm gonna. Let's have a quick chat about Forest. How did you feel coming out of the stadium on Saturday night?
Yeah, like every other Villa fan, pretty dreadful. After full time, when Forest scored their equaliser, I was pretty miffed then because I thought, this was a perfect. At least I thought at the time this was kind of like a textbook away performance. We've seen Villa do this before, not play particularly well, but they've got the goal and they're going to take 3 points out of a match where maybe they didn't deserve it. But it always doesn't matter because that's just what you do on the road when you're a good side. So when they equalised, I thought, that's a shame. But Villa probably don't deserve the win, or maybe a draw is a fair result, and that's okay. But no, we obviously lost and we capitulated really. So this is only one result, and I don't think we can kind of beat ourselves up too much about it. If we win 2 games out of 4, I'd probably take that because that would be a decent return from teams who would, good sides. So we've got 3 games left to get 2 wins, essentially. And I'm pretty confident that actually we can get a result against City on Saturday and Newcastle away, and then Brighton, games that we can win as well, like if we play well. So I'm not, going to be too downbeat about it, but that's probably because it's a few days now after the event. Afterwards I would have been cursing and all sorts. So, real frustration to lose it in that manner. But however we lose a game at the moment, it feels like, geez, we're not good enough to do this or that. And I'll kind of get onto it later in the episode probably, but I think I don't look at the table too much at this point. I do always say that until like the turn of the year, but obviously people still are. And we're still in a good position. I said after the game to someone that I still don't think there's 5 better teams than Villa, and I stand by that. Villa at their best, that is.
All right, let's get into some of these questions then. First of all, from Dave, who said, considering how well we performed last season, what would you guys consider a good season to look like as things currently stand? I think we've kind of answered this before, but maybe our expectations or the parameters change a little bit as the season goes on. Is your answer still any form of European football?
It's difficult to say right now because after what I've just said there, I just feel like if Villa finish outside the top 5, and this might sound mad because we've just lost, and before I wasn't saying it, but it's kind of just hit me as a realisation. If we don't get top 5 this season, I feel like it'll almost be like an opportunity missed a little bit. I don't know how you feel about it, Dan. But I just don't think there are 5 better teams. There are probably 4, but Forest, I don't think, or I said that they're better than us at the moment because they're higher in the league table, but we know that we can finish higher than them. Like we can. Man United as well, Tottenham as well, Newcastle as well, Brighton as well. Like we're good enough to finish above those teams. So whereas a few weeks ago I was thinking, we've still got work to do. I don't know where I've kind of thought about this, and maybe I'm just trying to be positive and protect kind of what we are a little bit. But I don't know. What is a good season for Villa? I mean, I would say European football. That's a good season, but at the same time, we're good enough to finish above all but 4 teams in the league this season, in my opinion.
I think there's a bit of a counter argument to suggest that when we kind of say like, oh, Villa haven't particularly played very well, or we're inconsistent, all those things are absolutely true, by the way. We are inconsistent, and the problem with what you're saying is we've got to show it. We are good enough to be the 5th best team in the league. We've got to actually physically prove it this season, which is half of the battle that Villa are struggling with at the moment. Given everything that we've said about Villa not being good defensively, or substitutions not working in games, or whatever it is, European hangovers, we're still 6th. So all the other teams are also going through the same things Villa have, and we've spoke about this over the last week or two. So you kind of go, oh yeah, but one of those will pick up in the new year. Well, maybe they won't. Maybe this is where we're all at. To suggest now that Villa are going to finish in the Champions League places in December after we've just lost to Forest, there'll be a lot of raised eyebrows listening to this going, oh, these lads are deluded. It's mid-table at best. And if that's the case, and we finish mid-table, it's because we're not good enough and we've not improved. But Villa have got the best part of, 20-odd games to get another, 40-something points. We talk about Villa's 2 points per game thing kind of rolling on. That's not where we are at the moment. If the 2025 half of the season can be that or near to that 2 points per game kind of ratio that you need, Villa will get mid 60 points again, and we'll see where that gets us.
Yeah, exactly. And we're not saying that we're going to finish here or there. It's just at least hit me as a bit of a realisation the last... I don't know, again, it's bizarre because it's after a Forest
Last
defeat.
10 minutes.
No, I've thought about it after we lost. So just looking at the table, I thought, yeah, shame we lost today. And we would have been where Forest are now if we didn't capitulate, essentially. And you know, credit to Forest. I think they're a good side. We know where we need to improve. And Emery said after the game, like, it's pretty clear to me where our improvement needs to be. But that's not a shock to anyone. It's defending and not conceding more than one goal a game. Even keeping clean sheets would be nice, but I don't think we're there yet. Bizarrely, have confidence even after that defeat now that we can definitely get Champions League season still. Maybe that's
deluded,
kind of...
mate. You're deluded.
Maybe that's blind hope. I think there's a very reasonable case that Villa can definitely be the 5th best team in the division this season. We just need to show it. And I know that's kind of like a big but or if. But as we keep saying previously, 70 plus games with the 4th best side in England. And I presume that's still the case. And again, a lot of people will be saying, yeah, but you're kind of basing this on the coefficient. Yeah, because I want to, and it makes you feel good.
But that's also a point. I've made this before. This is us just talking on the podcast. This is our opinion. There'll be people that absolutely are 10 minutes into this going, these two are idiots. I don't know what they're talking about and have switched off. And if that's you, fine. But I've always said when people are like so definitive one way or the other, either really positive or really negative, that there is an absolute unknown to football. You don't know that we're going to finish 5th. Likewise, the comments that are going, well, we'll be lucky if we finish mid-table. They don't know. There's no way to know. There's still so much weight, so much football to be played. But why not go with the positive side? If you don't know either way, why just sit back and go, oh, that's it, season's we're going to finish mid-table. That's Europe gone. Emery will be sacked. This. None of those things have happened or may not happen in the same way that 5th and Champions League football next year may not happen. But that sounds quite nice. I'd quite like to go with that as well. That's where I think it might go, because for the sake of my own brain, I'd like to just go, right, well, maybe something good will happen rather than something will happen.
If you said that we were 4th at this time of the season and we were 5th in Champions League, that for many fans would be like the best possible position that we could be in at this stage of the season, and that it's like, oh, that's like a 10 out of 10 season so far with 3 points off it. Like that, and that's why I'm struggling to kind of look into the kind of negative side of it too much. Like, yes, frustrating to lose to Forest, but ultimately we are so close to what would be like almost a perfect start to this. I say start, it's not the start, it's 15 games in. Like, this is going to move really quickly now. We've got a few more games before we've played everyone once. And I'd like to think that after that we'll still be in the top 7. And again, like, if we don't beat City and we don't beat Newcastle, maybe we drop into like mid-table. But again, if you beat Brighton and Leicester 2 home games in a row, you shoot back up to 6th or 5th. Or as long as you're in that realm come the final months of the season, there's no reason why Villa can't finish in the Champions League again.
Let's move on to a slightly different question from Connor, who says, thoughts on Ange Postecoglou's public criticism of Timo Werner 2 days after he said he would never do that in public. What would your reaction be if Unai did something similar? The only time I remember him doing anything like that was against Emi Martinez for the 4-2 against Arsenal, when he criticised him for going up for a corner without permission, which brings back terrible memories. Almost as a bit of a spin-off to that, really, because I don't know. I don't think I'd like to see Emery doing something like Ange did. I wanted to ask you about his comments about VAR. I assume you were in that press conference after Forest. That's the first time I could think of where Emery's come out and disagreed with a decision in that kind of manner. And not only just the words he was saying, and again, you'll be able to tell us a little bit more about this being there. His mannerisms and the way he delivered that point was really like a way I've not seen him before at Villa.
Yeah, it's the first time he's... well, firstly, I would say he still said we respect the referees and we respect VAR. And when he says that, he means Villa. And himself that he understands how difficult the job is, and he's not trying to dig anyone out or anything like that, because other managers may do that. They may just assume that referees are stupid or that they're incompetent and stuff, and that's not what Emery's trying to say at all. He says he knows, how difficult the job is, and the challenges that it brings, and the pressure that they're under, and these are all influences of why referees can make poor decisions. I think the reason why he was worked up about it particularly was because he'd finished an interview with Sky, I think, and he was asked about it, and he hadn't actually seen it back, so he such kind of like a normal response of we respect the referees, and it is what it is, essentially.
It is what it is. Yeah.
But then Damian showed him the clip or the incident. This is at Rodgers just before he entered the press conference room, so he was probably already a bit worked up, thinking like, that's a bad call from the referee. And I've just said on Sky, which will obviously go out to millions of people, that I think he wanted to get his point across that that's a bad call. So that was his opportunity, basically, in the press conference. He set it out as he did. If you haven't seen the clip, I think it's Sky tweeted it out at some point. Yeah, he was very miffed by it. And I've seen him like that before, not in the context of a bad refereeing decision. Obviously, usually after Villa don't win, sometimes he can either take it as like a, we need to improve, and he's very like relaxed and he'll save his words for the players, sort of thing. Other times he can put his point across in press conferences, and he definitely did that with this one. I think because it was an opportunity for him to do it, and then also he missed that opportunity in the Sky interview. Yeah. He's not wrong either. I don't know how.
No.
I don't know how that's not a penalty. What I would say is, I think Rodgers, and I haven't seen this bit back, so I'm not going to kind of go too much on it, but I think Rodgers had a bit of his shirt.
They had a bit of one or the other, and it went into the box. But it's a blatant pull on his arm, stops him progressing. It's a penalty. It's a foul everywhere on the pitch. So
I don't know whether the ref thought or the VAR thought, well, if that's a penalty, the action just before it was a foul on Anderson or whatever. I don't know. But as far as I'm aware, it wasn't particularly long. A particularly long check, and the PL Matchroom Twitter account, which is a bit of a farce, to be honest. They just said it was checked, and they didn't give a reason why.
Yeah, I love when that account was set up as like, insight into VAR and how the process is done, and more often than not, it'll be like, there was an incident in the game, we looked at it and we thought it was fine. Like, there's no reasoning to any of those tweets ever. What did you think of the Cash one, by the way? Just quickly while we're here, for the goal that led to the goal, was that a foul?
Yeah, I think Cash is very unfortunate. Not to have got a foul for that. I mean, you can kind of go into it. I didn't see the clip back, and obviously I'm rushed when I did my player rating, so I felt a bit bad because I said he was dispossessed before the goal, and I felt like maybe
via a foul,
yeah. So I think you can look at it in two ways and think, well, maybe Cash should have protected the ball better, maybe, and kind of this might sound harsh, but maybe got his body in the way of the ball and win what Conser does all the time.
I think there's a bit of an element. I don't want to get too kind of like, football's better in my day, but a bit of like kind of a modern footballer wants to go down in that position and try and get the foul rather than try and protect the ball and progress forwards. They want to think, if I feel something here, I'm just going to go down. And I feel like that's a more modern phenomenon. Like,
I feel like that's worked.
20 years ago, I think someone just stands their ground and just gets a foot on that and tries to clear it, whereas Cash just thinks, if I get in a certain position, I'll get touched, I'll go down, it'll be a foul. Well, it's not always a foul. Like, you can't rely on that being given, is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I get that. I think it probably was a foul, to be perfectly honest. And
I do as well. Yeah.
Maybe VAR didn't look into it too much because they're thinking, and I'm not saying this is the case, but in that particular moment in the game, they just had a offside, very tight, go against them. The atmosphere's up. They just equalised.
That shouldn't matter, though, should it?
It shouldn't, no. But I just kind of get the feeling of, well, if that was almost like a meaningless goal, they might have just overruled it. But because it was that in so much emotion as well, I don't know. It almost felt like because they're being aggressive. I don't know how quite to explain it, because it was in that moment, in 93rd minute. I think there's probably a lot more scrutiny on that if they disallowed the goal, whereas now we're even debating it. Was it a foul? Was it not a foul? I think it probably was a foul in 2024, nearly 2025. But VAR probably thought, well, yeah, let's just let it go ahead. And again, one of those where if the ref gives it, I say that if he gives it, then VAR aren't going to intervene, because then it wouldn't have led to a goal. But you get my point.
Yeah. All right, let's move on, because we're going to get caught in the weeds here on a decision that ultimately it doesn't matter now. It's done, isn't it? Let's all move on. There were a couple of questions about like January transfers, and I know we are getting close to that now, but there's a lot of games coming up over the next week. Christmas, we've both got annual leave. We'll talk about January and plans for transfers and PSR and all that in the first week of January when we come back and do our first kind of show of the year or whatever. So if you ask questions about January plans, we will get to those. Matthew says, is there any benefit in playing Pau Torres just because he can pass a ball? With how poor our defence is at the moment, we cannot be carrying passengers just because he can pass.
I understand the question for sure, but this is a key part of why we finished 4th last season. I get it because Villa are conceding goals like they did last season, but they were scoring more last season than what they are now. So we do need to ship less goals essentially because we can't find that balance. And obviously conceding goals is not something we want to do anyway, but especially when we're not quite on song. Yeah, I get it. What I would say is that, well, Mings was going to start against Forest, and I don't think anyone was shocked by that either. I think you can play either one or both, depending on what or who the opponent is. Against Southampton, it worked better, in my opinion, that it was Pau Torres, because you're going to come up against less physical players and less direct balls, obviously, because it's Southampton. But then Mings playing against Forest and other sides like that. Brentford, for example, direct team as well. Yeah, no surprise, basically. Like a Bournemouth team as well, like Mings would start that match, I'm sure, whenever we play them in the reverse of the Vitality. So, yeah, certain oppositions, it will work better than others. I'd also say in the shape that we're playing at the moment, I'd like to see both of them playing, and then Konsa as well. That's something that we've all said that we want to see at some stage. Emery said that's something that he wants to do as well. The only thing I would say is that system and shape, I don't think it works against every side, because then, as we saw, where does Bailey fit in and how does it look? There's other questions about what that looks like structurally. But yeah, Mings and Torres, I think it's a positive thing. I don't want to paint it as a negative. We have two side defenders. Pau Torres isn't an excellent defender at all, but in that position, we have centre-backs who can do different things. It's a bit of a luxury, really, I think, to have two left-footers, one who's a very strong defender and good with the ball in Mings, and then someone who's exceptional with the ball, not as strong as a defender, but at the same time, he's a Premier League centre-back, and again, played a key role in what we did last season. So, yeah, I understand the question, but I'm not going to kind of entertain that, why do we even play him sort of thing, or is he any good for what we're trying to do? I kind of disagree with that sort of sentiment.
I'm going to read a couple of questions out in one go, and then we're going to have a chat about them around the edges, because they're about kind of stats. So first of all, King81 says, statistically, how many goals have come from a player carelessly giving the ball away or being easily dispossessed? Because it feels like a lot. Unai's tried to replace Cash, Carlos and Dean, yet the defence is still built around these players, which is a side point we'll get into another time. Barv says, I'd love John to do some analysis on XG versus goals scored for year on year, and XG against versus goals conceded year on year. I'm convinced our main problem is that we're not converting our chances, whilst the opposition is converting far more, so that we don't actually give away many chances, but when we do, they're kind of easier ones or more higher quality chances for the opponent, and they tend to score them. I don't have the answer to either of those in terms of statistically how many times we've given away a goal from that position, or analysis on XG for and against. Neither were you, because you didn't know these questions were coming.
I have errors leading to shots.
Okay. Hit me with that then first.
That's probably the closest. I can't find errors leading to goals right now. I'd be able to find it, but not right now. So only Southampton and Ipswich have made more errors leading to shots than Villa this season. So Southampton 26, Ipswich 18, Villa 16. The positive is that Villa are in good company with Chelsea, Man City, Newcastle and Arsenal, the next teams, if that makes sense. So Villa is 16, okay. Chelsea 16, City 15, Newcastle 15. Arsenal 13, and then at the bottom of that you got Forest and Bournemouth 5 and 7. So there is quite a big disparity. I mean, that's only like 10 shots or just over, but yes, that kind of says a lot, I guess. Villa, third worst in that in that stat, which isn't ideal.
Something I wanted to bring up was the kind of conversation about Villa's flakiness, maybe when going ahead in games. That it feels like in 2024, this season, when Villa go ahead, they crumble, or they can't hold on to a lead, is I think what would be levelled at Villa as kind of a wider perspective. Maybe I'm overthinking this, and that's not how people feel. And maybe it's just because we've had a couple of moments in games recently where it feels like that's the case. Mm-hmm. I went through each of Villa's results of 2024 as a whole and had a look at times when Villa went ahead and didn't go on to win the game. Do you want to have a guess how many that was?
I'd say 10. Yeah.
I've got it as 5. 5 games where we've took the lead but not won the game from that position, and won almost. So Luton away last year, we were 2 up, got pegged back to 2-2, and Luca Dean luckily scored.
One of my favourite away games last season, that was.
That could have been another one as well. We went ahead but could have drawn the game, I suppose. And there'll be other moments like that where one goal swung it. Oh, we actually won. So yeah, there'll be other moments as well. Yeah. Forest, obviously the most recent one, went ahead, didn't win. Tottenham this year ahead at half time and lost 4-1 in the second half. Bournemouth this year as well at home at Villa Park as well. So that maybe adds fuel to the fire that 3 of the 5 were this season and in the last few weeks. Forest and Bournemouth are both late equalisers and winners as well. So that adds to the, we were so close and still didn't. I also looked at the flip side of it when Villa were behind but got something from the game. Do you want to have a guess for that one as well?
Villa were behind and got something from the game. How many
were
we talking?
We went at the same 34 games, just under 24.
I'll say 10 again because I don't know.
I've got it as 8. Crystal Palace, obviously at home, we only drew the game, but we did go behind in that one. Fulham away, we went behind with Jimenez, but Rodgers equalised pretty quickly, so we won the game in the end, but we were behind. Ipswich away, again, only a draw, and you would want us to do better, but we did go 1-0 down there as well. Wolves, 1-0 down at Villa Park, won 3-1. Everton went 2-0 down at Villa Park, won 3-2. Liverpool last season at home, obviously the game that got us into the Champions League with Duran, we were losing that game as well. Bournemouth last year, Solanke scored and we won 3-1 in the second half. West Ham last year, Zaniolo got the equaliser. There are more occasions, I'm making a very long-winded point here, there are more occasions where Villa went behind and got something than when Villa went ahead and threw it away. But I think if you just ask a general fan, what was your feeling of Villa? It's that, they take the lead, but they don't always see it out. Whereas the stats for this year shows that we actually do the opposite more. It doesn't excuse the fact that we throw points away from winning positions. That's obviously bad. And it's against sides that you would want us to beat. And the flip side, drawing to Ipswich and Palace, that's nothing to celebrate because we should be winning those games. But the fact we've gone behind and still managed to get something shows there is something there.
I feel like this is something that us fans, because we're in a Villa bubble, we think that, everything you just said there, I'm not going to repeat it, but we think that. And actually, this is something that Newcastle fans and other there's more clubs. But that's something that they would feel as well, and maybe they have actual reason to feel it. Whereas we, as you say, don't do it very often. I think it's just because we are putting ourselves, and rightly so, because we finished 4th last season, but we're putting ourselves in that category of like an elite side. Whereas if you do it once and then twice, it feels like that's a lot already. But you're right, we're in a Villa bubble and other clubs are doing this as well. As long as we do it, or how do I say this? As long as we don't do it enough and we get the 5th or 4th most points in the league, we're fine. I don't care how we do it, how many goals we can see. Like last season, we conceded an absolute boatload of goals, but we got the points that we needed. You can look at the negatives and think, we haven't played well and that we've given goals away and we're not seeing wins out. But really, when you boil it down, I think we're about where we were supposed to be.
Yeah, and this is just, as we've said, all the way through, and we don't need to keep saying it, but we do. This is our opinion. This is how we feel. There were people that absolutely disagree. There were people who have not got this far thinking these two just don't know what they're talking about. We're going to finish 10th. We'll throw the FA Cup, this, that. Whatever. We'll see, won't we? I don't like to be too definitive either way, even with our positivity that we're saying, we'll still finish in the Champions League, though. We'll still finish in Europe. We don't know that either. We're just trying to be positive because otherwise you're going to... I don't know whether it's because we do it for work as well, that we talk and write about Villa all week. So if we just kind of put ourselves into a negative hole of, that's the season over then, it's going to affect our day-to-day lives. This is our thing that we do for a living. If I'm just going to be like, that's the season over, what, do you want me to do that for the next 5 months? It's going to be a very boring podcast.
But
that's also not how I feel.
I do think I'm quite level-headed and I'm never going to get too high and too low. And I think sometimes people can think I'm like negative because of that. So I'm not trying to be positive here. I'm just giving my simple opinion of that. I do think Villa can be the 5th best team in the league again. In the league again. We finished 4th, but we can finish Champions League again is what I'm trying to say. And after a result against Forest, I think a lot of people would be like, she's trying to find a positive or whatever. Just feel like a lot of teams, as we keep saying, are having these inconsistencies. So are Villa. but we're so close to where would be a really strong first 15 games or not first half of the season, but we are approaching that. And again, you can look back and think how close we were to getting those wins over the line.
Yeah.
These next 2 games are gonna, I think, for a lot of people, kind of in their mind anyway, kind of it's gonna give them that information about what we are really, because City, Newcastle, Brighton, good sides. Also a chance that Villa don't pick up too many points. Maybe they do, and if they do, I think people will kind of come to what we're saying about, we can definitely finish 5th. If we don't, people are saying, you take Conference League, that sort of thing. I don't know, but again, it's such a long season, and I'm kind of infused that other clubs are struggling to find what we're lacking as well. So if we don't pick up the points we need in the next few games, well, okay,
there's a chance some of the others won't either. Yeah,
and let's hope then we beat Leicester and then go to Everton.
Let's just end with one silly question. We've not done one of these for a while, but let's lift the mood a little bit, John, shall we? I'm all right. I don't know why I said that. This is from Hans, or Hans's daughter, in fact, who says, my daughter has a silly question. If you had to have the hairstyle of one of the Villa players, your head, their hairstyle, I like that as a little quantifier.
Okay. Yeah.
Who would you choose, and why is it Tyrone Mings? Now, I don't think either of us could pull off Tyrone Mings' hairstyle, so let's rule out immediately. I also like that it's our head, because I feel like my head wouldn't go with many hairstyles, given how big it is. You've got a bit of Luca Dean about you, I think.
Okay, but doesn't mean it's a great hairstyle.
No, that's fine. I think that would suit you, because it's kind of what you have now.
Yeah, like they wouldn't, if I rocked it with Luca Dean's hairstyle in the next podcast, people, I don't think would
notice.
Would be like, what the, I'm looking at the hairstyles now, to be fair, and there's not actually, apart from Mings, which isn't like a particularly eccentric hairstyle, there isn't a whole lot. I mean, Bailey's changed his hair a little bit. I think he's got like cornrows now, I think.
Yeah.
Kamara's hair has got very long.
Do you reckon you could pull off the Tielemans?
What is the Tielemans? Oh, like skinhead. So is it skinhead?
Yeah,
kind of.
Call it a buzz cut potentially.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Oh, Rogers has changed his hair now, hasn't he, as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Fancy that? Bit of blonde highlights.
No, I don't.
Couldn't pull that off either. I really couldn't pull that off.
Yeah, I don't know. Who's got? Ross Barkley's usually got quite a neat hairstyle.
What about the Matty Cash? aka the Grealish, kind of the stick back.
Yeah, kind of. No, not for me.
Nah,
I say for
the hairline for it.
Maybe it works for Cash, but
although having said that, the question was their hair, so have I got their hairline?
Forget your hairline.
That would be a brilliant addition for me. I'll take any of them.
Matty.
I mean, it's only a matter of time before I come on one of these podcasts and I've got no hair anymore. I've shaved it all off. We'll be back at the end of the week with our Man City preview on Friday evening and then a post-match for Man City on the afternoon of Saturday. It's a 12:30 kickoff, so expect us a little bit earlier than usual. And then we've got our big Christmas special coming out on Sunday evening, so keep your eyes peeled for that as well. That'll be on YouTube only. So if you are a Spotify or Apple Podcast audio listener, you won't be able to get the Christmas special anywhere except YouTube because it's very visual, isn't it, John? So people need to go and see that. That's coming Sunday. You don't want to miss it. John, thanks for joining me. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the podcast, and we'll see you Friday.